Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lily Pod. The Lily Pod is Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's podcast that brings our communities, politicians, and community residents to the space so we can hear more about the incredible work that they're doing here in the city of Pittsburgh. And this episode, I'm very excited. I have been tracking him down and hunting him down, and I knew in my mind early this year that I wanted to get Councilman Khari Mosley here sitting down with us and just talking about, I just really excited to hear how it's been going. What's it been like? This is your first year in. You're not even a full year yet.
That's right.
Right? So how's it going?
It's going well.
Okay.
The city has a lot of challenges, but as they say, with challenges come opportunities.
Absolutely.
So I think we have an opportunity to really transform this city in a place we can be proud of, for generations. So I'm stepping into that breach and working hard and
doing an incredible job.
Thank you.
So far, we're keeping our eye on you, but you're doing great.
Thank you.
We knew you would. Those of us that had the opportunity to get to know you before and while you were running your campaign, and even those of us that knew you a little bit, right, from an outside perspective, I knew you. Man, it's been years,
right,
but I never really knew you. I just knew who you were. But you did such an incredible job during your campaign, getting people an opportunity to get to know Khari, right? Who is this person who wants to support D9, right? District 9, y'all. And we're going to talk about how do you know what district you're in, because that's really important. You need to know who your council person is. So I know that I live in East Liberty, and so I know that Councilman Mosley is my council person because our offices are also located in East Liberty. It's been really important to me to get to know you, to develop a level of communication so that as a resident and a business in this district, I know and I feel with great confidence that I can reach out to you when I identify issues that either impact me personally or impact my business. And so that is why it's important to know who your council person is, right? If you have issues in your neighborhood, you don't want to be calling your state rep to address it. You want to make sure that you know who is responsible for what. So that's what we're going to talk about just a little bit today. And let's start with a basic definition. What is a council person? What is a councilman or a council person? What is their role and responsibilities?
Yeah, essentially, your council person is your most local level legislator. I always say a city council to the mayor's office is what Congress is to the White House.
That's a good analogy.
So we're basically like your congressperson at the most local level possible. So we're, responsible for constituent services that relate to city functions like potholes, street lights, stop signs, speed bumps. We've been over the last couple of weeks since the tragedy in Homewood, with young Courtney, we've been working very closely with Domi, and it's my office that's working with the mayor's office to put in traffic calming to address what's happening over on Rosedale and Tacoma. And unfortunately, we're being reactive and not proactive, in that situation. But that's a good example of the types of things that council persons do. And we also help pass the city budget. The mayor has a budget proposal. We have a budget proposal, and we negotiate. But it's our job to pass the city budget, as well as to approve grants. And when money's coming to the city government from federal grants or from philanthropic support, we actually have to pass that. The city can, from the mayoral side, can do a proposal and fill out an application, but we actually
have to approve it,
even after the philanthropic or the federal government or the state or even the county says, here's $1 million to do this. We're the final arbiter on whether.
So would there ever be, this is interesting, would there ever be a reason not to accept it?
Generally not.
Okay.
But there is times where council members may not agree,
on how to allocate it, maybe.
On how to allocate, or even maybe agree that this is something that we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be going for money
I see.
for this purpose, and they may disagree with that.
Very interesting. So I think this is super important, and it's one of the things that we're going to be doing a lot more often, because there's so much we don't know about how this machine of politics works. And I know that there's a lot of us that don't necessarily understand how the decisions that elected officials make impact our everyday lives. Let's talk about how a resident who identifies an issue in their neighborhood, their community, they don't quite know who can help them solve this issue. They know you're their council person, but they might not know anything else. What does someone need to do to communicate an issue and get an answer about whether or not you're the right person?
Yeah, I mean, they could always contact our office.
Mm-hmm.
Our phone number is 412-255-2137.
Mm-hmm.
We're there 5 days a week, and we can help figure out
if you're right.
If it's
mm-hmm.
a local issue, a county issue, a state issue, or a federal issue. Generally, the federal government deals with national issues,
mm-hmm.
and deals with national priorities that come from United States senators and members of Congress, as well as obviously presidents. And then obviously state government, is dealing with your state reps, your state senators, your statewide row offices, the state treasurer, the auditor general, attorney general, and the governor of the state. And then you have your county executive and your county council. And then finally, at the most closest level to the community and to the residents is city government. Really, I had someone approach me who is a Jamaican national who has some immigration issues, and they came to us, and we were able to forward that to
good.
Congresswoman Lee's office, who deals with that issue, because again, that's
a
national, international issue.
Yes.
That's going to involve the federal government.
Right.
If it's something like your driver's license, then that's the state
issues.
That's a state issue. And then generally county issues more so involve things like health and human services, and a lot of times, sometimes state issues flow through the counties,
right?
Because the counties are really the local representative of state government.
So it can get complicated.
Yes.
Right. So for somebody who isn't as versed in politics, who doesn't, actually, what do you want to say to people who have just thrown up their hands like politics, that's for other people. It's not for us to get involved.
Right.
And it's, it doesn't matter who's in office. What do you say to those people?
I would, beg to differ. I think it's very important who's in office, and, whether we do politics, politics always does us.
Mm-hmm.
That was something
That's
I just
right.
read on social media a couple of days ago, and it really resonated with me, because, the decisions that the policymakers make affect everybody.
That's right.
Whether you participate
or not.
Right.
So we make sure we want people to understand that. I think I say that to people all the time. The cell phones that you use, the beer that you drink.
Right.
The gas that you put in your car, the food that you put on your table, it is all controlled by politics.
Absolutely.
So it's either going to do its thing over here without your input, or it's going to do its thing over here with your input.
Right.
And I think that is the message, right, that we want. So speaking of that, how long is your term?
4 years.
4 years. So folks, there will be times when our local elections are not the same year as a presidential election. And we know that turnout, for some reason, gets so much lower when it's an off-year election, when there isn't a presidential election happening. But these local roles are so important. They have the immediate impact on your life that a national election doesn't. And so I think it's even more important to pay attention to the local elections and when they are and whose seats are up for re-election than any other system. All of them are important, but your locals are so important. So 4 years from now, what year will it be?
I'll be up for re-election in 2027.
2027. What do you want to get done between now and 2027? What do you want to have your name all over it?
Yeah, I would like to really implement a strategy that addresses the intersection of equitable community development and solving our housing crisis. I think those two kind of intersecting issues, I think, are at the center of most Pittsburghers' minds, along with infrastructure and public safety. But I think the housing issue,
it's at the front of mind for most people right now.
Absolutely. And I think we need to figure out a way to, address the housing crisis and grow the city from a population perspective, but also grow it on a path of prosperity.
That's right.
Understanding over the last 50 years, we've gone through numerous challenges, and I think for the first time, I'm 48, in my life, it seems like there's a light, at the end of the tunnel. Like there's actually an opportunity that for the first time we can reimagine, what Pittsburgh is outside of the context of the Steel City, understanding that era was a time in our city's history. And we're beyond that time. So now what is the next iteration of Pittsburgh going to be, building on that legacy, but also charting a new path to the future and rebuilding neighborhoods that have been left behind during that time of decline, but doing so in a way that, we really embrace the rich culture and heritage, of those neighborhoods and honor those contributions that were made and not erase it.
Yeah. And so you sound optimistic.
Yes.
But what do you say to the people who are not as optimistic as you are? The people, we know those people. We know the people that have survived administration after administration after administration and feel like not a lot has changed for them. What do you say to the people who are feeling less optimistic right now?
I mean, the first thing I say is I understand where you're coming from. You're not coming out of left field, with your criticisms. You're not, coming out of left field, feeling dubious about the future of the city. But what I do say, is that, a city like Pittsburgh, has always, been built on overcoming, the challenges. It's not New York, it's not LA, it's not a city that had an easy path. So I say that, it's important for us to embrace, this challenging past and, understand that, the legacy of the city is something that we really need to be proud of.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a direct connection between the folks who feel dubious and not, bullish about Pittsburgh and the disconnect with the rich heritage and history of the city. And I think if we knew more about
where we come from,
and the Robert L. Vans that overcame huge challenges, particularly from a perspective of a Black Pittsburgh. I always say, as challenging as it's been for Black Pittsburgh over the decades, we've always punched above our weight, and we have
always
made
persevered
a contribution not only to this city and this state, but to the country and the world. That I don't think there's a Black community anywhere in America of our size. We've never had more than 100,000 Black people in the city ever at one time, but we had the most important Black newspaper.
The baseball teams.
We had, we were the center of Black baseball. Even, from a business standpoint, the Black leaders of the first half of the 20th century were some of the most influential Black Americans. They didn't come from Detroit and Baltimore and Philadelphia. These cities have hundreds of thousands of Black residents. It was this city that has tens of thousands of Black residents and also contributing, to jazz, and us being the center of the jazz world outside of New York, Chicago, in many ways. So, it's never been easy. And I feel like we have, an opportunity to really build on that legacy, and transform Pittsburgh, into a city that builds on all of its greatness, but also addresses the areas that it never got right in the past.
Right.
We can get those areas right too.
Man, I could have this conversation all day, but we're going to get kicked out of here soon. So I just want to talk really quick because I want to make sure that people know who we're having this conversation with, right? I know many of you know him as Councilman Khari Mosley of D9, but it's also known as K Mos.
Right.
Now tell everybody who K Mos is.
So K Mos is my alter ego. You know, I've been doing hip hop music as long as I can remember. Since my cousin Arnie Pinnell and my older brother Nere introduced me to Slide Jock in the early '80s, when Slide Jock used to take the recordings from the New York mix shows and play them on Whammo at like, I don't know, 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
This is like 82, 83, 84. And so I fell in love with the music then, and not long after that, I started writing rhymes. Elementary school, middle school, high school. Got more serious about it in college. Had a band called the Renaissance Society. We were kind of like the Roots, but bigger.
Yeah.
We had like a 12-piece hip hop band.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
You know, I've run into a couple of musicians at the Friendship Folk Music Festival. I ran into my buddy Dauber. Eric Brockschmidt, who was doing a solo kind of banjo thing, and he was part of the band, and so I always always on the side. It was always a side thing for me.
But you just dropped an album.
But I did just drop an album.
Tell us about the album.
Yeah, with my brother Selecta.
Yes.
As many of y'all know James Scaletti, aka Selecta. Me and him have been actually a duo for almost 2 decades.
Wow.
Every now and then we would go in the studio and do something, but during the pandemic, you know, he was approaching 50. I was in my mid-40s at the time, and it was like, hey, you know,
we're going to do this. Yeah, we got to do it.
At least to say we did one. You know what I mean? That we could kind of sleep easy as we get older and not say we missed that opportunity. So in the late fall, early winter of 2021, going into 2022, we started recording Bringing 88 Back. Yeah. You know, which is really an ode to Pittsburgh hip-hop and an ode to the classic hip-hop culture, late 80s, early 90s.
And so I'm that girl, right? I was a teenager in the late 80s. So I'm a little bit older than you. And I've been listening to this in my car. And I played a little bit when we came in today. And it's so reminiscent of my teenage years, like when I was, you know, going to the parties and, you know, crushing on the boy. The 80s was my teenage years, my highlight reel. And this music is so reminiscent of that time. I mean, it literally was like taking me back to, you know, when we used to sit and wait for the song to come on so you could make your mixtape, and you had to wait for the rotation in the radio again. Like, y'all don't know, you know, y'all young people don't know what we had to go through to make a playlist, right? And it just took me back. That's awesome. I was like, the thing that really struck me was you're in this extremely serious job, right? This job where you're making decisions for constituents and communities that you care about, but you have found a way to have this creative outlet that I think is so important for all of us, right? To make sure that we keep space for some type of creative outlet. And I just think that's dope.
Thank you.
I want you to teach me how to do it, because I know there's a creative in here, but unfortunately, I haven't found my creativity. I'm a program designer. You know, I design programs, but I know there's a creative thing, and I think it's so freeing. And it probably is a stress alleviator to be able to just go into that zone, that thing that gives you so much joy. Absolutely. And I just want to commend you for doing that, and doing it while people probably were maybe not. We're trying to convince you that this wasn't the right time because, you know, you got to focus on this. Were people saying that to you?
You know, yeah, people wondered about, because actually I ran for office. I decided to run for office after we started making the album. You know what I mean? So the genesis of the album precedes me deciding to run for office. So people knew we were working on an album, and then in the middle of the album,
they were like, "You should run the beat."
Yeah, I decided to run for. And people were like, "Well, how is that going to work?" And I was like, "I don't know.
I'm gonna just do it."
Yeah, I'm just gonna do it.
I love it. I think it screams authenticity.
Right.
It screams, this is who I am. So if you vote for me, this is what you get. And
Right.
I love it.
Thank you.
And I just want to congratulate you on everything.
Thank you.
Winning the election, dropping this album, and just getting out here and doing the work. We appreciate you. I appreciate you being my councilman.
Thank you. I appreciate all you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we're going to continue to do work together.
Absolutely.
We're in this together. When we're going to roll out, we're going to be back the next episode. I don't know who it is yet, but join us because you will want to hear from them. And then we're going to play a little bit of Bringing 88 back as we exit. Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you guys next time on the Lily Pod.
Light is up for Fight from Tribe, yo, and all the greats who died. So we pay homage to them every time we do a live show. Biggie said the limit is the sky, yo, and he ain't never lied, so I'ma go for mine, yo. Jimmy said we running out of time, no, I know we're gonna shine, yo. It's like I saw a sign, bro. Between my DJing and your rhyme flow, tell me who can see us cut for cut and line for line.